Hello, I welcome you all for this talk on Lagrangian multiplier method for solving a constraint optimization problem. Our main objective of this talk is to give an example of an application of inverse function theorem. Our talk is organized as follows. First, we recall some fundamental concepts from linear algebra and several variable calculus. We also recall the inverse function theorem and we prove the implicit function theorem as an application of inverse function theorem. Finally, we state and prove a theorem which justifies that how the Lagrangian multiplier method works to find the stationary points of a constraint optimization problem.
Let us start with the definition of derivative of a scalar valued function of several variables with respect to a vector b. If phi is a scalar valued function on an open subset S of r power n and a is a fixed vector in S and b is a vector in r power n, we say that phi is differentiable with respect to b at a if limit t tends to 0 t in r phi of a plus tb minus phi of a by t exists. The limit is called the derivative of phi with respect to b at a and it is denoted by phi dash of ab. If u is a unit vector, then phi dash of au is called the directional derivative of phi in the direction of u at a. In particular, if u is ek, where ek is one of the members of the standard basis of r power n, then phi dash of a ek is called the partial derivative of phi with respect to the kth variable. It is also denoted by dou phi by dou xk at a. The total derivative of a scalar valued function at a is defined by a linear transformation phi dash of a from r power n to r satisfying the identity in equation 1. The gradient of a scalar valued function is calculated by an n-dimensional vector dou phi by dou x1 at a, dou phi by dou x2 at a, etc. dou phi a by dou xn at a. There is a theorem which connects the total derivative and the gradient by phi dash of a at v is gradient of phi at a dot v. In particular, the partial derivative of phi at a with respect to the kth variable is simply phi dash of a ek. In the context of functions of several variables, there are different versions of chain rule and mean value theorem. Let us see the simplest version. Let f be a differentiable vector valued function on an interval, and phi is a differentiable scalar valued function of several variables such that phi composition f is defined. Then phi composition f is differentiable and phi composition f dash of t naught is gradient of fi at f of t naught dot f dash of t naught. The mean value theorem for functions of several variables says that if phi is a continuously differentiable function on an open subset of r power n and a and b are members of S such that line segment joining a and b is contained in S, then there exists lambda in the interval 0 1 such that phi of a minus phi of b is equal to gradient of phi at a plus lambda times b minus a dot b minus a. Here we may observe that a plus lambda times b minus a is a point on the line segment joining a and b. We clearly know that if phi is a function of several variables and phi has total derivative at a, then phi has all partial derivatives. Conversely, if phi has all partial derivatives in a neighborhood of a and all partial derivatives of phi at a are continuous, then the total derivative of phi at a exists. As in the case of function of single variable, for functions of several variables also we can talk about stationary point, local maxima, local minima and saddle point. If phi is a continuously differentiable function on an open set S of r power n and a is a vector in S, We say that A is a stationary point of phi if gradient of phi at A is 0. If there exists a neighborhood of A such that phi of x is less than or equal to phi of A for all x in the neighborhood, then A is called a local maxima of phi. If there is a neighborhood of A such that phi of x is greater than or equal to phi of A for all x in the neighborhood, then A is called a local minima of phi. If A is a stationary point of phi and it is neither a local maxima nor a locally minima, then A is called a saddle point of phi. It is easy to observe that if A is a local maxima or local minima for phi, then A must be a stationary point. As in the case of scalar valued function of several variables, for vector valued function of several variables also, we can introduce the notion of total derivative. Let f be a vector valued function from an open subset S of r power n into r power m. A is a vector in S. We say that f is totally differentiable at A if there is a linear transformation f dash of A from r power m to r power n satisfying the identity as shown in the slide. If f is totally differentiable at A, the matrix representing f dash of A with respect to the standard basis is given in the slide. We can easily observe that the ijth entry of the matrix representing f dash of A is dj of fi at A. Similarly, we can define the directional derivatives and partial derivatives of vector valued functions of several variables, as in the case of scalar valued functions of several variables. The chain rule for vector valued functions says that if f and g are differentiable vector valued functions of several variables such that g composition f is defined, then g composition f is also differentiable and g composition f whole dash at A is given by g dash of f of A composition f dash of A. Here we observe that g dash of f of A and f dash of A are linear transformations. If we write this identity in the matrix form with respect to the standard basis, we get the following corollary. Let f be f1, f2, fm, g be g1, g2, gp, and h the composition of f and g by h1, h2, hp, then the jth partial derivative of hk is the kjth entry of the product of the matrices representing g dash of f of A and f dash of A with respect to the standard basis. That is, dj hk at A is given by summation di gk of f of A into dj fi of A, where I varies from 1 to m. Now we recall some fundamental concepts of linear algebra. Let V be a vector space over R. A subset S of V is said to be linearly independent if sigma alpha k Vk is 0 with alpha k's are scalars and Vk's are from S. Then alpha k's must be 0 for all k. Linear span of S is defined by all finite linear combinations of members from S. A subset of V, B, is said to be a basis of V if B is linearly independent and L of B is equal to V. The cardinality of a basis is called the dimension of V. We know that every non-zero vector space has a basis, and basis of a vector space is not unique. However, the dimension of a vector space is unique. R power n, the Euclidean space, has the standard basis E1, E2, E3, En, where Ej is the n-tuple in which the jth coordinate is 1 and the remaining coordinates are 0. If V and W are vector spaces over R, a map T from V to W is said to be a linear transformation if T preserves addition and scalar multiplication. A bijective linear transformation is called an isomorphism. If there is an isomorphism between two vector spaces V and W, then V and W are said to be isomorphic. Rank of a linear transformation T is the dimension of the range of T. If T is a linear transformation from V to W, it is called invertible if it has an inverse with respect to composition of mappings. If T is a linear transformation from V to W, then T is invertible if and only if dimension of V is equal to dimension of W is equal to rank of T. Dimension of V is n if and only if V is isomorphic to R power n. Given a linear transformation, the null space of T is a subset of V which contains all vectors for which T of V is 0. In fact, it is a subspace of T. We know that T is a one-to-one transformation if and only if null space of T must be singleton 0. To discuss the relationship between a linear transformation with a matrix, first we introduce the notion of ordered basis. Let V be a vector space over R. V1, V2, Vn is said to be an ordered basis of V if it is a basis and the order in which Vj's are arranged are fixed. That is, we won't interchange any Vj with any Vk. For a given linear transformation T from V to W and an ordered basis V1, V2, Vn of V and an ordered basis W1, W2, Wm of W, we associate a matrix Aij as follows. Since Vj is a member of V, T of Vj is a member of W. Since W1, W2, Wm form a basis for W, this T of Vj can be written as a unique linear combination of Wi's. That is, if T of Vj is equal to sigma Aij Wi, I varies from 1 to m, now we consider the coefficients Aij. Keeping A1j, A2j, A3j, etc., Amj as the jth column of a matrix, we can construct a matrix. That is the matrix associated with the linear transformation T with respect to the ordered basis. It is easy to observe that although the transformation T is fixed, if we change the basis of V or the basis of W, the matrix associated with T will change. However, the linear transformation and the matrix will have similar properties. For example, T is invertible if and only if the matrix Aij associated with T is invertible. The rank of T is same as the dimension of the column space of Aij. By column space of Aij, we mean the linear span of the column vectors of the matrix Aij. It is also interesting to observe that the matrix associated with the linear transformation changes the composition of linear transformations into matrix multiplication. More precisely, if T is a linear transformation from V to W and S is a linear transformation from W to X, B, C, D are some fixed order basis of V, W, X respectively, then the matrix representing S composition T is Cik, which is obtained by multiplying the matrix representing T and S.